Is Hollow Knight Silksong too hard? That's been the conversation that's been going on the past week since the game released, and I definitely think it's an interesting one worth diving into, because I don't think it's super black and white. Now, this whole debate raged. I was away on a little vacation trying to touch grass, but I have jumped into Hollow Knight Silksong since it dropped. I've been playing it on Switch 2, and I'm still in the early days, but so far so good. It's definitely more different than Hollow Knight than I expected, just in terms of like complexity, amount of NPCs, amount of things going on, amount of gameplay systems and upgrades to your character and move sets, and also just like way more vibrant, even more beautiful art. I'm really enjoying my time. But that aside, the whole difficulty conversation has been something, man, because you look on social media, some of you guys actually reached out to me and asked me what I thought about it. I appreciate that. But you look on social media, you look on Reddit, and specifically like the Hollow Knight fan Reddits and stuff, and there is a lot of back and forth about the difficulty. And this is interesting because the original Hollow Knight was also incredibly difficult. So when I first saw this conversation, I kind of immediately wrote it off as like, it's just people crying. What's the big deal? Or like, Silksong was so hyped up. Like, it became such a meme that I think that there were a lot of people jumping into Silksong because of the hype, not really knowing or even having played Hollow Knight, the original, and realizing that they were getting into a game that looks cutesy and fun and interesting, like a little Metroidvania platformer, but is actually brutally hard. So I thought it was a lot of people just getting total whiplash from that, but there are good, interesting conversations and points to be made around the difficulty. Now, I think this is very much a matter of you as a player. Some people have an absolutely astronomically high ceiling or like of tolerance with bullshit with games and difficulty and challenge and insurmountable moments. Some people just live for that challenge, that rush. Me personally, I do not. I tend to bounce off hard games very much. It took me so long to really understand why some difficult games are still good and valid, like obviously Dark Souls. I understand good, proper difficulty. I've studied it. I understand like why it can work, why it is rewarding. But from a personal standpoint, it's just not something I look for. That's why even me playing Silksong now, I know eventually at some point, like I'm not reviewing it. I didn't do the before you buy video on Game Ranks. I'm just playing it in my own time. I might bounce off of it. I don't know. But the conversation out there, it's not really just like, it's hard, I don't like it. There, like I said, there is more to it and some interesting things pointing out in terms of the rosary bead or like the in-game currency economy and how that is balanced. Just the amount of runbacks in the game, just the game being extremely not generous with benches and where things are placed, stuff like that. I've seen a lot of people talking about with the bosses and how some of that works and how you can get locked into things and how essentially falling things or environmental damage can kind of stack and smash up with a boss also hitting you. The boss's actual damage window, like the frame around them, is extremely generous. Some people have called it kind of bullshit or unfair to a point. A lot of things with bosses, really. One person I saw on a subreddit made an interesting point about a boss's hitbox. If you just happen to graze it, even when that boss enemy is stunned and not even doing an attack, it'll still whack you with double damage. Look, there's a lot out there, and I'm pointing this out because I think this is like a good, productive conversation. And I think diving into what makes a game difficult and what makes a game feel unfair can be kind of fun because it can help you realize like what you specifically want out of a game, where your bar is for difficulty. And plenty of people have beaten this game already. You can look at the data, like people are beating it, people are finishing it. And I don't think it's necessarily just a matter of like, hey, you're just not good enough. Get good, I think there's a lot more to it, and I think the conversation online has been showing that. You don't see too many people hating on each other, dismissing each other as like, hey, just get good, like, or maybe your skills suck, maybe you're rusty. I do think there is a lot in terms of getting used to with the game, mechanical complexity, like this game and Hornet as a character just has a lot more going on compared to combat, movement, and everything in the original Hollow Knight. So there's a lot of getting used to, and look, if you're going to ask me specifically, like, Jake, do you think Silksong is too hard? Again, a lot of this can be subjective to a point, especially because I'm not diving into like personal small nitpicks with hitboxes with bosses and stuff. For me, Yeah, it is too hard. But that's also because, like, I acknowledge it. I suck and I bounce off of hard games very often. Again, I'm pointing it out because I think it's interesting. And, like, I've grown very cynical of social media over the years, but, like, this is how it works. And I think this is where it's fun, where you see people in real time experiencing a video game and reacting to a video game together. I mean, there is a pretty big difficulty jump pretty early on in Silksong where you're playing and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't so bad, right? I guess this isn't that hard, and then it gets you. So a lot of people were reacting to that. Hardcore fans are even reacting with some actual nitpicks and good grievances about difficulty tweaking and stuff like that. I don't think it's like a disaster or anything for the game. And I also think that it's interesting that Team Cherry, the developers, are apparently making the game ever so slightly easier. A patch is dropping next week that has bug fixes and normal early game patch stuff, but also slight difficulty balancing. And when you look at what it is, it does not completely change the game or anything. And I don't even think it's like a concession. Like, it's not Team Cherry looking at feedback and going, oh man, everybody's right, it's too difficult. It's just slight tweaks that I think do make sense. But even if Team Cherry were to adjust or quote nerf the difficulty even more, I think they have every right to do that. I don't think that's essentially them like giving in to player complaints or feedback or anything like that. I think they are the masters of the ship. They made the thing. They can really do what they want with it. But I do think it's interesting that you've probably seen reports of the influxes of mods that make the game easier. So I think it is worth noting that, like, there is definitely a need out there or a crying out for people to have the game be a little easier. And I don't know what it is. Like, sometimes it's so funny with challenging games, right? Like this, for me, it was Lies of P, where, right, like there are these games that are just incredible pieces of art, right? Like great level design, amazing characters, or beautiful graphics, or just great surprises, right? And all of that is hidden away behind a wall of impenetrable difficulty. Look, some people absolutely love that, and Team Cherry is going with that, and you have to respect them because, like, they didn't just do Hollow Knight again. Hollow Knight Silksong is very different, and with that, the difficulty has increased. Again, I haven't hit a point up to the game where, like, I think it's unfair, but, like, there have been, like I said, a lot of interesting bits out there, and I don't think it's a black and white debate, where with Dark Souls and stuff like that in the early days of that, people were just like, shut up, get good. The Silksong debate has been more interesting to watch play out. If you're new here, welcome to Two Things. Every Wednesday, I do a video, and when it's not like a review or anything about a game, I usually talk about gaming news. On the Game Ranks Friday show, I do all the news, but here on this channel, every Wednesday, I pick 2 news stories I find interesting and dive into them. The other thing I wanted to talk about is with PlayStation celebrating a big birthday. Of course, North America's PlayStation birthday was September 9th, 1995. With that, video game analyst Matt Piscatella from Circana did release some interesting data that has just been kind of fun to go through. I've been looking through this list. I'll give you guys some reactions. He essentially posted a breakdown of the 20 best-selling PlayStation games in the United States. It's broken down into 2 categories: dollars in terms of like how much money generated, and then just top games in terms of units sold, how many copies sold. So I'm gonna mostly stick to that one. And the list is pretty funny, right? When you look at it, it's a shit ton of Rockstar stuff and a lot of Call of Duty, like Call of Duty Cold War, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 6, all this shit, right? But then, of course, you have the things that we've been talking about forever. You know, at the top of the list for both dollars and units sold, Grand Theft Auto 5. Right up there, top units sold, also Minecraft, of course. San Andreas, an older game. This list is mostly populated by somewhat newer games, but you have an older game like San Andreas here at number 4. Also, it's cool to see not only Spider-Man on here, which I did expect, but also the spinoff, Miles Morales, The Last of Us, God of War 2018, Skyrim is on here, of course. Interestingly enough, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is on here. I think sometimes we don't realize just how big that game really is. There's a whole world out there, a whole esports world out there that I don't even understand. But I also love seeing Guitar Hero 3 cracking number 10 in terms of dollars generated. That's probably because the game was just at a higher price point because it's sold with the controller, the guitar controller pack in. But I just miss those games, man. Now, the one thing I really wanted to focus on, dive in here, is the rank number 3. Number 3 in terms of money generated and units sold is Red Dead Redemption 2, which you might automatically think like, yeah, it's a list of Rockstar games, of course. But I always fall back to this being at the top of these lists because I find it absolutely fascinating, right? You have these lists that are just filled with, for lack of a better, but like casual, like sports bro stuff, Call of Duty, Fortnite, kid stuff with Minecraft. And then right there at number 3 is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I'm going to glaze. But like, look, that is I would consider a more hardcore game, a slower, more deliberate, almost simulation style game that not only is a slow, methodical game, but also tells a layered and nuanced story, like a real damn good story. I'm cynical sometimes, and I just think like that wouldn't crack the top of the charts like this. And yet we have Red Dead Redemption at number 3. So when I think that like gaming, when I worry about the trajectory of gaming or like where things are going or how people think about games, how people perceive games, I always go, hey man, at least, and this is going to sound pathetic, but like I think about video games a lot, right? So like I always think like, hey man, up there in the top 5, the top of the charts is such a special and unique game like Red Dead Redemption 2, which tells you that general audiences, obviously this list, the United States, but also the world, really resonated with this type of video game experience. Like we're talking mainstream. And I just think that's awesome. I'll link the whole list in the description down below if you do want to check it out. They also put out a top 20 best-selling PlayStation 1 games list, which is cool. Gran Turismo is at the top, which you'd expect. Crash Bandicoot is also close towards the top, but also some of my personal favorites, of course, Metal Gear Solid, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Driver cracking number 9 in top games in terms of dollars. Resident Evil managed to squeeze on there. Spyro 2, interestingly enough, but what I didn't really expect is Final Fantasy 7 is all over this list, yes, of course, but also Final Fantasy VIII squeezed in there, which that's cool. That game at the time, like being alive, didn't feel as much of like a huge smash success thing that captured the world like 7. But I guess 7 had a long tail, and then a lot of people ended up buying 8, and hence why it's on this list. That's cool. But I'm asking like, where's Heart of Darkness? Where's Jet Moto 2? Where's Omega Boost? Where are all those weird PlayStation games that only my brain remembers? And yet I can't remember important things like my social security number, but I can rattle off games like that off the top of my head. Blasto, Tai-Fu, Astro Kid, like I could keep going, but that's really it. That's what I got for you this week. That was the stuff I wanted to yap about. So let me know in the comments what you think. Obviously the Hollow Knight thing is going to get pretty heated, but be civil. People get weird about difficulty, but like I said, I think there is a good, fun, interesting conversation about it. What Silksong is doing right and wrong. So let me know how you feel. Maybe you played more of the game than me. Maybe you have a stronger opinion. Hit me. Also, I'd love to hear your PlayStation memories. It's celebrating an anniversary. Are some of your favorite games on this top 20 list? Let me know. But you can always find me on the social medias if you want to yap at me. I'll be in the comments as much as possible, but I'm also on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. That's where I tend to post the most. I like Instagram, but yeah, follow me wherever. Thanks for listening to me yap today. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me.